If you would have told me that Philip Gustavsson got yanked from this game, that Brock Faber left in the first period, and that Jordan Binnington stayed in the game, I would have told you that it was for sure a Minnesota Wild loss. Thank goodness for Marc-Andre Fleury, though, as the Wild storm back to beat the St. Louis Blues by a score of 6-4, and just continue to say, we don't care. We don't care. We don't care no matter the adversity. We're just going to keep winning. We got a lot to discuss in tonight's postcast, so let's fire it up.
You are Locked On Wild Postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The Minnesota Wild pick up a 6-4 win over the St. Louis Blues, a game in which Philip Gustavsson got pulled because he gave up 4 goals in a span of about 4 minutes, a game in which Brock Faber left in the first period, and a game in which the Minnesota Wild just said, we'll just go win the thing ourselves. A great storm back by the Minnesota Wild in this one as they score in the third period at will, 3 third period goals to come away with a 6-4 win, 26-11-4 now on the season. And first off, let's welcome Denny into the show, everybody. Denny, very anxious to hear your thoughts about this game, and no better place to start than Zach Bogosian, Jon Merrill, and Marcus Johansson all collecting goals in this one. In fact, it was Bogosian and Merrill that got the scoring started in the first period. Within the first couple of minutes of the game, the Wild already had a 2-0 lead. And that was just the tip of the iceberg for this game. It's just so many things that happened over the course of this game. But let's talk about Jordan Binnington first off. Kaylee joining us tonight. Thanks for joining us. Jordan Binnington about to single-handedly ruin any chance Canada has at winning the Four Nations face-off. Binnington was atrocious tonight. There's really no other way to put it. The Wild generated 1.7 expected goals offensively, which is not terrible, but it's not great. And 5 goals scored against Binner. So he was negative 3.3 goals saved above expected. And I just like to explain this every time the stat gets mentioned. The lower the expected goals number, the harder it is for the opposing offense to score, which tells you that the defense is doing a better job. And if you are that far below in goals saved above expected, you had a full diaper out there on the ice, and Jordan Binnington certainly had that here tonight. Total unblocked shot attempts by the Minnesota Wild was 32. They had 24 low danger, 7 medium danger, and 1 high danger. But who needs to really crash the net when the goalie can't stop a beach ball? What a roller coaster of emotions that game was. Right you are, Will. It looked pretty dicey when the Wilds fell behind all of a sudden 4-2 in the blink of an eye, and no Faber on the bench. If you notice that I am periodically looking away, it is to try to get updates, and now just see Michael Russo tweet, no update on Faber. So why is it that this team, every time somebody comes back, somebody else departs? I don't. I don't know what to make of that, but that would be another big loss if Faber is to miss time. But he played 2 months with broken ribs last year, so I would imagine if he's able to go at all, we're going to see him no problem. How about the return to the lineup for Jake Middleton? 22-29 of ice time, a goal, an assist, 3 shots on goal, a block, 3 hits, Welcome back to the lineup, Midzi, and we're glad to have you back. It's interesting. Marc-Andre Fleury was 15 out of 15 in the saves department in the final 35 minutes. I don't know how that works for goalies. I would imagine it does not count as a shootout, but it does count as a goalie win. So Fleury coming in relief. The Wild were down 4-2 at the time that he entered the game, and they ended up winning 6-4. There's some great saves by Marc-Andre Fleury, to say the least, in this one. He had the patented Fleury windmill saves. It just, it's not an easy situation to come into a game, and that is a pretty potent offense for the St. Louis Blues. And Fleury just took them all to task. And it was a huge reason as to why the Minnesota Wild were able to come away with the win in this one. Like the old saying goes, a 2-goal lead early in the game is one of the worst things that can happen in hockey. It goes for both teams. The Wild had the early lead, and the Blues did too. But the Blues did not hold theirs. The Wild held theirs when they got it back. So exactly what you like to see. Good point from Britt here. I'm not even mad about Gus. Everybody has a bad day. Even some of the all-time great goalies have gotten pulled in a game or two in their careers. It isn't like Gus doesn't give it his all every game. And I think the thing to really take away here is that the Minnesota Wild, they had Gus's back. They picked up their performance, and they rallied so that he didn't get left on the hook for the loss here in this one. So it's part of the game. It happens to a lot of different goalies. In fact, you'd be hard pressed to find a goalie that hasn't gotten pulled at some point in their career. It just happens. Sometimes you just don't have your best stuff. Sometimes a team is able to get the jump on you. And it just was a weird kind of a 4-minute span of that game that led to the Blues being able to get the upper hand. And at that point, John Hines is kind of like, well, we're trying to win a game here. So I'm just going to give Gus the rest of the game off just to kind of unwind and process what happened, because there's a big game coming up on Thursday. I would imagine we may see Gus again in that one, or maybe you just give him the day off on Thursday and you ride the hot hand. It's all about picking up teammates in those instances, and the Wild did that here tonight. What's with these injuries? Gus got one back and one goes out. I have no earthly idea. I'm just hoping that it's not a bad one, because Brock Faber is a pretty key piece to this defense. But we've been saying that about Jared Spurgeon. We said that about Jake Middleton. And this Wild team they just find ways to continue to get it done. It doesn't matter who's in or who's out. They continue to find ways to get it done. And how about the job by Zach Bogosian tonight? He scored. He had 5 hits and was just like, he was just possessed in those final few minutes and throughout the game. Like he was on a mission to make it hurt for the St. Louis Blues, and just a lot of quality play by the Wild D-Corps, not named Brock Faber, to step in. Jonas Brodin had 33 minutes in this game tonight. And just vintage Jonas Brodin performances. Everybody was on their game, and it seems like the Wild just do this. Every time the chips are down, every time something happens, and they use it as almost like a rallying point. It's not something normal teams do, but they just keep finding ways to do it. One of the bigger points of the night, Boldy goals are back. Now 2 straight games for Matt Boldy with a goal. Ryan Hartman had another multi-point outing tonight. Joel Eriksson Ek had another goal. Marcus Johansson, as Alex and I talked about on Monday, Marcus Johansson snapped his goal drought with the empty netter to seal it. The goals tonight, Boldy, Eriksson Ek, Johansson, Bogosian, Merrill, Middleton. And only one of those players is one of your primary scoring options. Secondary scoring. It has returned. I know you will never have a scenario in which you would say, well, maybe it's a good thing that Kirill is out of the lineup, but I think what it forced this Minnesota Wild team to do is it forced the team to try to see who was going to step up to fill that void. And all these secondary options have stepped in and said, okay, it can be me tonight. Okay, it can be me. It can be me. You've got guys that are just stepping in, and I think the big reason as to why they are doing this. Now, some of the goals tonight, obviously the defenseman goals were a little further out. The Wild have done a much better job of crashing towards the net and trying to get in as close as they can so that you don't have these long stretches of scoring droughts. They just continue to like fly downhill, and that's the best way that you can attack a goalie or a team is to just try to get down low and fire it at the net. In some cases, after the whistle, which Freddie Gaudreau absolutely did well after the whistle, and I love the fact that that was, I think, kind of the point at which you could tell that St. Louis might be in trouble because they let it get under their skin. And I don't know what it is about this St. Louis team because we've seen the Wild be on the wrong end of it. But this St. Louis team seems to have a little bit of an issue with not getting embarrassed by this Minnesota Wild team. And any things that the Wild do seem to just irritate them all over the ice tonight. And that play, while minuscule in the grand scheme of things, I think was kind of the beginning of the end for that Blues team. Joe Smith on X. Jonas Brodin asked how he'd recover after a career-high 33 minutes, 2 seconds on the ice. I don't know. Maybe order pizza. That is how I would. That's how I would do it tonight. What was Middleton's plus minus tonight? He was a even 0 tonight. Hoptics. Zach Bogosian was a +3. Brodin a +2. Chisholm a +2. Jon Merrill, the only defenseman in negative territory here tonight. But Middleton was all over the place. That decor, they seem to really relish being able to take chances and come away with the goals all over the place here tonight. As Danny notes, we are halfway through the season. How many of you picked the Wild to finish for over 100 points? I sure did not. I had the Wild in the fight, quote unquote, for a wild card spot, but distantly behind the rest of the pack. So, joke's on me. Joke's on me. The Wild are every bit of a contender through the first half of the season. And they're every bit capable of contending in the West. Because what does this team do best? What does this Minnesota Wild team do best? They handle adversity. And yeah, the Dallas Stars and the Winnipeg Jets and the Los Angeles Kings have gotten to the Wild in single game instances so far this season. But a series is a whole different animal. A series is a whole different set of circumstances. And we just don't know I would tend to lean more favorably towards the Minnesota Wild because of what they do to bounce back. What they do when things go awry. They just don't stay down. They don't stay down on the mat. The Wild are now 6-1 without Kirill Kaprizov in the lineup. The Wild won a game in which they played 5 defensemen for the final 51 minutes of the game. Need I go on? They take all of these circumstances that would crumble mere mortal teams, and they just slide them off to the side. And they say, ain't no problem. Ain't no problem. And they just continue to rack up the wins. Who is going to get called up for Faber? That is a great question, Freddie. I don't know. My guess is that it would be Lambos again, but we'll find out tomorrow, I'm sure, when we get a little more of an idea as to what Faber's dealing with. The Wild have, through all of these injuries, the Wild have just, come up kind of favorably in some of them. So I guess we'll see. Interesting quote from Jim Montgomery, courtesy of Jeremy Rutherford, who covers the Blues for The Athletic tonight. And I quote, "There were a lot of moments where we needed to bear down more. We need that kind of, I call it grit. You've got to want to win that battle so you can move pucks forward. Tonight, this is something new for me. I didn't like how we handled the adversity tonight." That is Jim Montgomery. He's been around a few games. He's coached in big games before, and his team did not have an answer for the Minnesota Wild saying, all right, Faber's out, and Wild just announced no practice or media availability tomorrow. You know what? Last year I hated when they did this. I don't mind it at all this year because it's just maintenance. Everybody just needs rest days after games like this. That crew that played the final 2 minutes of the game and we're just blocking shots left and right, just throw them straight in a cold tub. It's a team that has given everything that they have very, very often this year. And it's like, just give them as much time as they need and gear up and get ready for Thursday's game against the Avs. Rossi's size really showed tonight. You got toss around out there all night. Please don't give him big contract. He won't show up in playoffs. Okay. JoJo and Johnny vibes, each a goal. Put this on the calendar. Yeah, mark this one down. You don't get the opportunity to see this happen all that often. What is Kaprizov saying watching this team? Kaprizov is saying, now this is a team that can win without me. This is the perfect type of team for Kirill Kaprizov to commit to long term. Because what have we been talking about? The big key for keeping Kirill Kaprizov around is proving that you don't need him, that you can win in other ways so that he doesn't have to do the whole thing himself. So you don't have this line of players that just stacks up behind him to wait for him to do his thing. These last 7 games, you have seen the Wild find new options. In fact, you know what I would like to do? Let's take a look at how the scoring has been spread out over the last 7 games. I'm going to have to kind of guess on this a little bit. Let's go back to that's probably too far. Okay, so we need to go to like the 22nd. Nope, that's not far enough. Oh, that was a back-to-back that weekend. Okay, so over the last 7 games, listen to this. In the last 7 games, Marco Rossi has 3 goals. Matt Zuccarello has 3 goals. Jonas Brodin has 2 goals. Marcus Foligno has 2 goals. Joel Eriksson Ek, Matt Boldy each have a goal. Brock Faber has 2. Ryan Hartman, Yakov Trenin, Declan Chisholm, Jared Spurgeon, Freddie Gaudreau, and Kirill Kaprizov is still listed in here. What the heck? Well, point stands. Look at all those different players that have potted goals during this stretch. Secondary scoring, balanced scoring. We've been clamoring for it for a large part of the season, and it is finally back. It's finally back. And this is exactly what this team needed. PK still needs a lot of work. The goal in less than 7 seconds was gross. It was hideous. It was awful. And it comes down to 2 things. Brett Marshall did a pretty thorough dive into the penalty kill on his Substack that I'm probably going to touch on tomorrow. It comes down to 2 things. Face-off wins and just not being able to defend right in front of the goalie. And you give up a power play goal right off the face-off. If you can just win the face-off, then that never happens. But here we are. And, it's something that's still now 41 games remaining. You got to find a way to tighten it up. Now, it was 11 out of 13. It was trending in the right direction. So still right now, you're 11 out of your last 14, which is a better stretch. But what I would like to see is a stretch in which, 20-game stretch in which you maybe can be at around 80%. I just want to see consistently somewhere close to the 80s as opposed to consistently somewhere around the 70s. That's all I'm looking for at this point. Jake Middleton picking up right where he left off. Right, you are, Denny. 1,000% correct. The way Faber skated off the last time, it looked like he might have gotten a stick to the midsection. He was stiff and slow getting back. Middleton was an absolute beast tonight. I will say it was interesting that the Wild worded it as an upper body injury. So that would track. But it all depends. It all depends on what they find in the whatever they have to do, MRI or X-ray, whatever it is. I would imagine we will know more Thursday, maybe tomorrow, but definitely Thursday. Minnesota Wild D now second in the league from a scoring perspective. This is exactly what they need. Secondary options, that includes the defense. Doesn't have to just be the forwards. If the defense can step in and contribute, that goes a long way too. What are we working with for cap space? The Wilds currently have, at least according to Puckpedia, they have $327,000 in current cap space. The deadline cap space is currently $787,831. But now that the Minnesota Wilds are not utilizing long-term injured reserve, they can start to generate cap space on a daily basis. So that number is going to go up. As far as what it means for the rest of, what it means between now and then, just have to see with what they accumulate. We've got a solid 2 months to the day for the trade deadline for the NHL. So there's plenty of time to accumulate some space, accrue some space, and you can always go the broker route too. Just because the Wild don't have cap space that's not gonna prohibit them from making a move at the deadline, whether that be Brock Besser, Brock Nelson, whoever. There are ways to make it happen. Just need a third team. Right shot defenseman is going to be needed. I sure hope so. Mark is joining us from Sopchoppy, Florida. Thanks for joining. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate having you. Team is playing for each other. Again, Denny's 1,000%. Denny has not missed in tonight's episode at all, but several shows, whole season. Middleton looked a bit rusty, got caught flat-footed a couple of times, but really rounded it out in the third. Was quite surprised overall that he had a great game. Yeah, it was going to take him a little while to kind of get him back in shape, but I thought he did just fine. Brock Nelson could be a big mistake. Old, slow, and in the way. Hasn't scored an NHL goal since November. Maybe I should lift the trade ban. Do you guys want me to take a look at some options? Do you want me to do an episode where I take a look at some potential options for this team from a trade perspective? Maybe some out of the box names. Anybody be up for that? Just let me know in the comments, and that's something that I could certainly allocate some time to doing. We're getting very. He said no trade talk, no backsies. I'll mix one in here. The problem is, the problem that we keep talking about is there's just nobody that's super out of it right now. So it's hard to gauge okay, this team is definitely going to tap out. So I'll come up with a couple of options. Definitely no Rossi trade talk. Rossi's not going anywhere. Not going anywhere. I want to do this. I want to, because what did somebody, I think it was Hoptics that said it. Really glad we're keeping our pace with the points because the Avs are a wagon right now. I'm going to go back to the point that Mackenzie Blackwood was acquired to see what the Avs record is from his first start to now, because it's pretty good. He's 7-1-1 with the Avs. His first start with the Avalanche was December 14th. Okay, so what I want to do here. December 14th to now. The Colorado Avalanche are 8-1-1, and they are fourth in the NHL with 17 points in that span. Dallas Stars also have 17 points in that span. The Minnesota Wild in that same span, they are 6-5. But again, playing 500 was always going to be kind of the measuring stick when key pieces were out of the lineup. If you can just play 500, that's going to be that is basically doing what you're expected to do given those circumstances. And now your biggest piece of adversity, and you just continue to come away with wins. I don't know. This is going to be a fun finish to this season because, as I said with Alex yesterday, I think this Wild team, because of how well they've done on the road, I think you can if you get the 3, you could walk into whoever you play. You could walk into whatever road environment you play in and easily suck the life out of their building. Now, that doesn't mean that the playoffs are easy, but this team is just built to win these tough, gritty, grimy, dirty games that you don't get all the headlines for. Like, there was no part of tonight's game that was, from a playing standpoint, enjoyable because, and I'm of course I'm exaggerating. I mean, the Blues outshot the Wild, they out-face-offed the Wild, they out-hit the Wild, they out-everythinged the Wild. But the Wild won because the Wild were more willing to do all the things that don't show up in the box score, and that's why they won the game. John Hines on the last shift with Johansson, Hartman, Eriksson Ek, Bogosian, Brodin, and Fleury. This from Michael Russo on X. That's what I talk about with the competitive nature and digging in when it's not easy. Every guy on the ice has to be willing to block a shot. Every guy on the ice has to be able to play when to be continued. This is going to be, you know what we're going to do tomorrow? We're going to have to do a 3 things again because it sounds like Hines has some pretty delicious post-game quotes. So we'll do a 3 things for you tomorrow, probably around lunch or slightly after, depending on when I get in my my nap. I think the Wild need to pull a Vegas and put someone on LTIR and pick someone up at the deadline. Well, depending on what happened to Faber, hopefully we don't have to see that play out, because if it would come at the expense of Brock Faber, that wouldn't be great. But we'll see. Colorado has had last luck a bit. They can buzz, but they still give up shots and goals. Need structure on the back end, and please no. It's any of these teams is beatable. Just depends on what you do on your side to handle your business and make sure that the game stays close. Is this the second part of that? No. Zach Bogosian with a quote from Russo here. That's the way hockey should be. Unless it's like a blatant hit to injure, I think it's kind of prison rules, and that's the way it should be to finish games. It was a fun last shift. Faber's, thank you, Dan. I think I meant to make that point with Spurgeon, but Spurgeon is just on regular injured reserve, and I don't think he's going to be put. I don't think he's going to be put on LT. Faber would give you nothing from a cap perspective. The only way you'd be able to do it is if it was Spurgeon, and the way Spurgeon was playing, I don't think it makes sense to just say, "Oh yeah, we're gonna just sit you down for the rest of the season." I'm not I don't think the Wild will do that. So it just is a matter of continuing to accumulate cap space as the season grinds along. I don't know what they accumulate on a daily basis, but if they can get a certain amount, daily by having a couple of roster spots open, then I think that could go a long way. Otherwise, just get somebody to broker. Just get somebody to broker a deal. Have them take up most of the salary cap space, and you're fine. Bogosian was straight up trucking dudes. He had destructive energy tonight, and I think that was very much needed for this Wild team. Just go out there and just hit people. He's one of the bigger players on the team, and when he is using that mass to truck people out of the way, good things will happen. All right, I think we're going to go with a little bit of a short one here. Not going to go the full hour tonight, because work and other things. But we'll have you covered for Thursday's game as well. Trying to see if I can get a crossover lined up with Locked On Avs. Hopefully, able to record that tomorrow. If not, we'll be able to make some things happen. But Thursday is going to be a great game. And I like this from Brian. Colorado trailed Buffalo 5-3 with 3 minutes left. If Buffalo wasn't such a mess, it should have been a loss. Lost 5-6 straight draws to McKinnon. It's a little bit of a yucks for the Avs, and they do play tomorrow night against Chicago. So it will be a back-to-back. Maybe we don't see Mackenzie Blackwood in that game. So that would be that would have me feeling nicey. So we'll see. We'll see if we can get something ironed out. But otherwise, big game on Thursday. The Wilds survived another fight, beat the Blues 6-4. We'll see if we can get any word on Brock Faber. Of course, if we do tomorrow, we'll break it down in real time because we always do that. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in to another live postcast here tonight. The Minnesota Wilds come away with a 6-4 win over the St. Louis Blues. Avs on deck. Could my hat get any lower to where it actually covers up my eyes? We'll find out on our next episode of Locked on Wild, which will be coming up for you tomorrow. So make sure to tune in. Make sure to hit that like button before you head out. And we'll be back with you tomorrow with another episode of Locked on Wild. Wild win, 6-4. See ya.